And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is my picks for the top 20 commanders of this year that was 2021. Just my humble opinion on what I think the best ones were, and man, we had a great year. This is continuing my series of best of the year cards. I have 4 videos total for talking about all the best of the year because there was a lot of great stuff for Commander this year, whether it be commanders or cards in the 99. And of course, as I already did my removal video, I thought this was probably the best year ever, maybe, for removal, at least in Commander. I mean, we got a lot of great cards for removal in Commander. So I'm going to start out with an honorable mention, or 2 honorable mentions, and they are Denik and Asmi. I call her Asmi, Asmorana Mardika. I really got to figure out how to say that name. And the reason I got to figure it out is because I have this deck, right? These are my 2 decks. The reason I'm giving these honorable mentions is because of all the great commanders this year, these are the 2 that I actually made decks with. I love both of these decks. They're tons of fun. I'm being objective here, which is why I'm not putting these anywhere on the list. I think they're lots of fun. Are they a little underwhelming? Probably, but we all know I like my underwhelming commanders. So I'm giving these honorable mentions because they're my personal decks. Of all of the commanders that came out this year and the over 100 decks I built this year, these are the ones that I actually am adding to my personal collection. But moving on to the actual list, coming in at number 20, Shadrick Silverquill. And again, we're seeing a lot of Strixhaven cards on all of my lists for this year. There was a lot of great sets this year for Commander. I think Strixhaven was the best, and I think Strixhaven is one of the best non-Commander sets for Commander of all time. It's a fantastic set, both with the Commanders and with the 99 cards. Shadrick Silverquill is a fantastic Commander, 3 white and a black Elder Dragon, 2/5, and I mean it is an Elder Dragon, so I'm giving it a little bit of an oomph because of the Elder Dragon as well, right? This is Elder Dragon Highlander after all, and I think everyone out there should have at least one Elder Dragon Commander deck. Flying and Double Strike. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player, and this is what I really love about this card is, first of all, it is at the beginning of combat on your turn trigger, which means that you can use it right away. You cast your commander and then right away you get something. I like to get at least a little bit of value out of my commander every time I cast it. So you're guaranteed to get this unless, your opponents kill this before you can even get to your combat step. But they're probably not going to, and that's because this ability is so interesting, right? You're going to choose 2 players and your opponents know that they're going to be one of them. You're going to choose yourself and then an opponent. Target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Target player draws a card and loses a life. Target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. So I just love, first of all, the versatility of all the different things that are happening. You can build around all those. I mean, you can make Inkling tribal if you want and always pick that ability for yourself and then let an opponent draw a card, play the politics game. You can play up the advantage of I put counters on my opponent's creatures. You can play around that maybe. I force my opponents to draw cards, put an Underworld Dreams in here. There's just a lot of ways you can go with this. I think it's a really interesting commander. Coming in at number 19, Oswald, Fiddle, Bender, 1 and a white gnome, Artificer, 2/2. Pay white and tap. Sacrifice an artifact. Search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed artifact's mana value and put it onto the battlefield. Then shuffle, activate only as a sorcery. I mean, this is just such a great, you have a commander with a tutor. It's a tutor on a stick. Any commander that has a tutor ability is going to be great, of course, in this format. I'm really surprised this one's not more popular. I thought it would be one of the most popular from the set. I think it's fantastic. There's a lot of different ways you can go with it, right? You're playing an artifact deck, but that doesn't restrict you to anything. You can go mere tribal if you want. I mean, there's so many different things you can do in artifacts. So that's why I think this is great. On top of the fact that your commander is a tutor, right? You can go combo-tastic with this as well. There's lots of great combos in just artifacts alone, right? The version I made had Painter's Servant and Grindstone combo in it. If you're interested in this at all, go check out my happy anniversary video. I have this deck list that I made. It was another one that I just was really high on. It was number 1 from Forgotten Realms for me. And just didn't love what the deck was doing, again, because I was comboing off, and I don't like to be the guy that shows up at a casual table and has people go, oh, you got a combo? I don't want to be that guy, so I try to avoid those situations. But if your pod is okay with it, then go find that deck list and give her. Coming in at number 18, Killian Inc. Duelist. White and a black human warlock 2/2. Lifelink, menace. Spells you cast that target creatures cost 2 less to cast. And again, I love how open-ended that ability is, where I can cast an utter end on my opponent's creature and it's only going to cost 2 mana. I can cast an aura on my creature, my Killian, right? So it's any creature that you're targeting. And this is one that I think flew under the radar initially when it first came out. I know it wasn't blowing my socks off when I first saw it, but it is really popular. It actually is right up there with the Strixhaven Commanders. And I think because people realized all the different things you could do with it. Just a very interesting commander. Coming in at number 17, Hoffrey Ghostforge. 3 white and a red dwarf cleric 4/5. Spirits you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types, and has, when this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to your hand. That's quite a mouthful, and that's why this card is on the list, because it's just doing so much. Again, you'll see a popular theme here of commanders that I'm not just going to do the same thing every single time. You can do a lot here. You can do Spirit Tribal if you want to. You can do a reoccursion. Like the deck I made with this, if you want to go check that out, was actually an artifact deck. I did artifact creatures where I'm sacrificing my artifact creatures because both white and red do a decent recursion theme in artifact, surprisingly, right? You can throw your Goblin Welder in this deck, stuff like that, because I thought it was important that when the token, you get the token, and when it leaves the battlefield, the creature that was exiled with it goes back into the graveyard. So I thought you want to use that to your advantage as well, right? If it's going to go back in the graveyard, now we can get it back again and sort of rinse and repeat. And just a lot of different ways you can go with this commander. I like it a lot. Coming in at number 16, Coma Cosmos Serpent. 3 green, blue, Serpent 6/6. That's right. This is this year. This seems like a long time ago now, but this is from 2021. This spell can't be countered, so right away, that's fantastic. I always love, just like with Hexproof, or, making it not so easy for people to get rid of your commander is always an added bonus, especially when you have an expensive one. I get to 7 mana and I'm going to cast my commander and someone just counters it. Lame, now I got to wait at least 2 more turns. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. Sacrifice another serpent, choose one, tap target permanent. Its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. That's a very handy ability. Or Coma Cosmos Serpent gains indestructible in the turn. So, of course, again, that ability to protect itself is really, really great. I made this deck as well very early on, way back in like January, I think. I did this, one of the first deck techs on my channel that got a lot of buzz, got a lot of views anyway, because a lot of people were loving this commander. It's a great commander. Again, I like that it can't be countered. It can protect itself. I've heard people, I was actually in a game and online and someone's like, no Coma. They didn't want Coma because they hated it so much. Oh, is that a thing? Is it too powerful that people don't want to play it in a casual game? I don't know. I think it's a great commander. Coming in at number 15 is Chatterfang, Squirrel General. 2 and a green, Squirrel, Warrior 3/3, has Forest Walk, and I kind of like that they brought back the Forest Walk. That it's an ability that was sort of had disappeared for a long, long time. I like that they brought Land Walk back. I think it's interesting. More interesting, though, here is if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead, and you can pay a black, sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature gets +X, -X until end of turn. So a lot of things going on there, a lot of really interesting things. Obviously, you can go Squirrel Tribal with this, and I think a lot of people do, but again, the deck tech I made with this is not Squirrel Tribal. I think that just a token deck, and because whenever you create 1 or more tokens, any kind of tokens, right? If you create a treasure token, you're going to get a squirrel token as well. Great for sack fodder. Obviously, your commander has a sack ability. You can do a Golgari Aristocrats theme here. That last ability is really neat because you can use it to kill other creatures, or you can use it to buff your creatures. It's just a lot of really neat things going on here for sure. Coming in at number 14, Eudora Grave Gardener. 4 and a green. Treefolk Druid 5/5. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may return it to the battlefield face down under its owner's control. It's a forest land. That is just such a unique and interesting ability. I had to put it on this list. This one is not as nearly as popular as I thought it would be. You know, it's just so interesting. There's combo potential there too, which usually bumps up popularity. I mean, it's hanging in there. It's around the middle. I just thought it would be a lot more popular. It's got such a unique ability, right? Really entirely unique. You know, there's no other card in the game that does that. So for me, that's why I just got to give it a mention. Coming in at number 13 is Tox Reel the Corrosive. 5 black, slug horror 7/7. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token, and you can pay blue and a black, sacrifice a slug, draw a card. And thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for throwing that blue pip there in the description, which of course is probably just for us commander players, so that this can become a Dimir deck. I would have been totally okay with this being mono black. I think if this was a mono black commander, you still could make a very interesting, fun deck with it. It's a slug, and it is a little slug tribal, but more so it's I'm just killing my opponent's creatures to get slugs so that I can sacrifice them to draw cards. That's the deck that I built anyway. Everything happening here is so fantastic, really powerful too. I'm putting, you know, it's on each end step, again, just like with the coma, that each end step or each upkeep thing makes an ability so much more powerful in Commander, and it's only creatures you don't control. I mean, there's just lots of great stuff going on here. I did a deck tech for this one as well if you want to go check that out. But coming in at number 12 is Min Wooley Illusionist. 1 blue, Gnome Wizard 1/3. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with this creature. Gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. So already we're doing tons of stuff here. This is what I love this commander so much. And again, the theme here is lots of commanders that you can go lots of different directions with. And here we're already in a I want to draw a second card each turn theme. So you need that. You're in illusion tribal here, sort of. You're creating tokens. So you're already doing so much already. Also, whenever an illusion you control dies, you put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield, which obviously is a fantastic ability as well. So, you know, you can go illusion tribal with this. You can not put any illusions at all in this deck because your commander is making illusions. You know, you could do this so that I just want to draw a second card each turn, like on opponent's turns as well, which isn't that difficult, right? All you have to do is like a loot, like a frantic search on your opponent's turn. That's drawing 2 cards. It's going to make an illusion. And every time you do, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if they die, you know, and that's the added bonus is I create this giant team of illusionists. And if they die, oh, well, I'll just put a whole bunch of stuff into play. You know, it's like board wipe protection. It's really great. Amazing commander, I think. Coming in at number 11 is Cardur Doom Scourge. That's right. And this might be the commander that flew under the radar for me, for everybody, the most. When this first came out, everyone's like, yeah, it's okay, I guess. Like, there wasn't a lot of buzz about it. Not a lot of people are excited about it. Now it's gained a lot more popularity. I probably have mentioned this commander on my channel more than any other. I already did it on my Underwhelming Commanders video, and I don't even think it's that underwhelming. I think in my 10 cards video where I always like to mention certain commanders that cards work great with, this is the one I mentioned the most. I've probably mentioned it like 7 or 8 times on those videos because there's just so many things that work with what it's doing. If you haven't seen it before, it's a 2 black and a red Demon Berserker 4/3. And when it enters the battlefield, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. And, you know, I thought, well, why don't they just put Goad on there? But that's actually better than Goad, because Goad is only going to affect the creatures that are currently in play, and this will affect the creatures that enter the battlefield even after, right? This basically is affecting your opponents, not your opponent's creatures, right? Your opponents have to attack with their creatures and they have to attack someone else. So it's just so great. And then on top of that, whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And like I said, you even have a life gain there if you want to add that theme in as well. There really is, even though it doesn't look like much on its face, there really is a lot going on there. Great commander. But coming in at number 10, Gerelf. Visionary Stitcher, 2 and a blue human wizard, 1/4. Zombies you control have flying. 1 blue mana and tap, sacrifice another non-token creature, create an XX blue zombie creature token where X is a sacrifice creature's toughness. Like, I'm not going to stop on this commander. I seriously am not. I think it is amazing. It doesn't get nearly enough love. All the people out there saying that mono blue isn't great for zombie tribal, please stop. This is not a zombie tribal commander. This is I make zombies, and then those zombies get flying. I played against my patron who has this deck, and he just stomped all of us. I mean, it was really, really hard to stop with what he was doing. There's so many neat things you can do in this deck. I already did this deck tech as well. Go check it out. It's a really interesting commander, I think. But coming in at number 9, and I think I have 4 Orzhov commanders on this list. Orzhov really made out well this year, no question. Of course, from the Strixhaven combined with C21 when that all came out all at once, obviously. Felisa, Fang of Silverquill, 2, a white and a black vampire wizard, 3/2 with flying and mentor. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, create an X tap 2/1 white and black inkling creature token with flying, where X is the number of counters it had on it. First of all, it's doing a very unique thing, which I love. I always love commanders that do unique things that aren't really done by anyone else. You're going to do a bunch of things in this deck that are very unique that you're not seeing in any other decks. The key here is whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, any kind of counters, it doesn't have to be +1/+1 counters or any other kind. It can be any kind of counters. I had a patron that made a very interesting deck with Felisa where it was a charge counter deck. Like I have a bunch of artifacts that put charge counters on themselves, and then I use like Xenic Poltergeist or something like that, or Karn, to turn it into a creature. So that and then I sacrifice it and get a whole bunch of Inkling tokens. I thought that was a really interesting take on it. Again, I rank it this high because it is unique, and also there's a lot of different ways you can go with it, which is what I love about certain commanders. Speaking of unique, coming in at number 8 is Cody Vociferous Codex. 3 mana, legendary artifact creature construct, 1/4. You can't cast permanent spells. So that makes for a very unique deck building situation right out of the gate. And then you can pay 4 and tap, add Wooburg, white, blue, black, green, and red. When you cast your next spell this turn, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile an instant or sorcery card with lesser mana value. So very cascadey feeling, a little different though. Until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put each other card on the bottom of your library random order. So I mean, again, it's just very unique, very interesting. A lot of different ways you can go with this. I love the restriction there. It has a very powerful ability. So the fact that you add that restriction on it as well. When this card first came out, I was not excited about it at all. I'm like, oh, here we go. Another Golos, another, artifact creature that is a 5-color commander that people are going to do a whole bunch of busted things with. But you can't cast permanent spells is just such a restriction on you. I mean, do you even put a Soul Ring in this deck, right? Do you? I don't know. I mean, maybe. I guess it can get your commander out faster. You just have to make sure you cast it first, right? Obviously, an incredibly unique commander and incredibly unique in what it's doing and what you can do with it. And that's why I like it a lot. Coming in at number 7, Raynard the Ever Watchful, 2, white, blue, Spirit Warrior, 2/3, Flying Vigilance. The first card you foretell each turn, cost 0 to foretell. Whenever you exile one or more cards from your hand and or permanents from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token flying. So again, this card might not seem like much on its face because it's like, oh, well, you're foretelling with it, right? Obviously, foretell works with the first ability and with the second ability. But the important wording here is whenever you exile one or more cards from your hand or permanents from the battlefield. And again, if you check out my deck tech on it, I just had a blast putting this deck together because there is just so many unique, interesting cards that are exiling permanents from the battlefield to trigger your commander. And of course, your commander is also technically a white-blue spirit tribal commander as well, so you can also do that theme. By the way, there's a whole bunch of great white-blue spirit support that came out in Innistrad, so you might want to check out those cards for this deck if you already have it. Go check out my deck tech that I did on it. I found a bunch of really interesting cards that fit there. Surveyor's Scope, for example, is a card that I've been trying to make good in Commander for a while. I found a few decks now that it fits in. This is one, because even if you don't get any lands from it, it exiles itself, so you're exiling a permanent from the battlefield. So at the very minimum, you're at least getting that spirit token from it. So I think just a really interesting commander, again, because that ability of I exile stuff from hands and graveyards is just so very unique. There's a lot of different ways you can go with it. And as we move on into the future, there will be more cards that'll come out that are going to exile themselves from your hand or from the battlefield that you're like, oh, hey, that fits in a Raynard deck. Even though it wasn't initially obviously meant to, it's going to fit there sort of out of happenstance, right? So really great commander, I think. Coming in at number 6, Volo, Guide to Monsters, 2, blue and a green, human wizard, 3/2. Whenever you cast a creature spell that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard, copy that spell. So, I think this one doesn't require a whole lot of explanations, just very unique. What I loved about it initially was it was the opposite of a tribal deck where you want to avoid having the same creature types. I thought that was great. The fact that you're a commander as a human and wizard means you might not want to put humans or wizards in the deck because that ability won't trigger at all. Again, a lot of interesting things you can do here. And again, played against my patron that has this deck. And this is why it's nice to do these lists at the end of the year after you've been out there and these commanders have been out in the wild and you've played against them and with them and you get a better feel for what they can do. My patron gets a spark double, casts it, gets the copy obviously, and both copies copy his Volo. So he's got 3 copies of Volo out. So then the next creature he casts, he gets 4 copies of. Like, needless to say, things got out of hand really fast in that game. Really interesting commander for sure. Coming in at number 5, though, is Helt, the Rot Cleaver, 2, blue-black, zombie warrior, 3/3. Whenever another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a zombie. If you do, draw a card. And when this card came out, I had it in my top commanders from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. And when I did that, I said, hey, I think this might be the best zombie tribal commander now. And, is it? I think it might be. I like the card draw. It's giving you tokens. Lots of great stuff going on there. Yeah, you get a Decayed token, but then you can immediately sacrifice the Decayed token to draw a card if you want. Or you can sacrifice a zombie that doesn't have Decayed and get another Decayed token. I mean, just a lot of great synergy there, I think, for a zombie tribal deck. Coming in at number 4, though, is Exitus Auric Overlord, 1 white, black, human warlock, 2/4. Double strike. Has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, return target non-legendary creature card from your grave to your hand. So that's a very usable ability. Very usable, no question. Being able to return creatures from your grave to your hand. There's a lot you can do with that. However, a lot of people, including myself, built around the back of this card, which is maybe the more interesting. You can go either way, obviously, because it has a flip side, it makes it so you can do a lot of different things with it. And again, that's the commanders that I like, is the commanders that you can go a lot of different ways with it. So on the back is Awaken the Blood Avatar, 6 black, red sorcery. So yeah, it's a sorcery on the back. And as an additional cost, to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. So obviously, if you can sacrifice 3 creatures, it's only going to cost a black and a red. But then, of course, it's going to go to your graveyard, and you got to figure out a way. Now your commander is in the graveyard, and you got to figure out a way around that. And you can go check out the deck tech that I did with it, where the way I had the workaround for that, where I can just continually, the way I built the deck, and I think the way a lot of people built the deck is I'm going to cast Awaken the Blood Avatar as many times as I can, because when you do, each opponent sacrifices a creature, which is always great, and you create a 3/6 black and red avatar creature token with haste, and whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent, which of course is fantastic, and it can attack right away, so you're immediately going to get the 3 damage to each opponent. And these aren't as maybe should be, but whatever. This isn't a legendary token. It is just a black and red avatar. So you can create as many as you want. So once you start attacking with 3 of these a turn, you're going to be dealing 9 damage to each opponent. And that's before you even connect with your creatures. So great build around. Again, you can build around the front too. Right? There definitely is a lot you can do there on the front for sure. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, return a non-legendary creature from your grave to your hand. Definitely a lot you can do there as well. And again, you have the red, right? This is a Mardu commander, so you can add the red into whatever you're doing there. Moving on to our number 3 commander, though, is Adrix and Nev, twin casters, 2 blue-green, Merfolk Wizard, 2/2. Has Ward 2, and again, like I say all the time, I love any sort of, I'm going to inhibit my opponents from removing my commander. That's not to be undersold. I always love, even if it's just Ward 2 and it costs my opponent 3 mana for that Swords to Plowshares, I love that on a commander. That's always an added bonus for me. But of course, what you're building around here is if one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. So we have a parallel lives in the command zone, and it's also blue and green. Obviously, again, I compared this to Atraxa, even though it's not a 4-color commander. Still, it's the same thing where that is such a broad theme, and that is why Atraxa has been such a popular commander for such a long time. Yeah, it's powerful, but also the proliferate is there. How many different directions can I go with that? I can go so many different directions with a proliferate deck, and this is the same here, where there's so many different things I can do with this. I can do Squirrel Tribal. I made a Clue token deck with this before there was actually an actual Clue commander and investigate commander. That's what I did with this deck, because now I'm creating double the clue tokens. This is all tokens, so anything in the game that is creating tokens you can do in this theme, and it doesn't have to all be the same. You can go all sorts of different directions with this, right? You can throw a Coma in this deck, and now Coma is going to create double the Serpent tokens on everyone's upkeep, right? You can go a million different directions with this. That's why it's such a fantastic commander, and that's why it's going to be a very popular commander in the format for a very, very long time. Coming in at number 2, though, is going to be Oscar the Reconstructor 2, a red and a white giant artificer 4/4. Vigilance. Pay 1. Sacrifice an artifact. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Pay X and tap. Exile an artifact card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create 2 tokens that are copies of the exiled card. Activate only as a sorcery. And again, it's really great that Boros has the second best commander of the year. Some people might consider this the best commander of the year. It certainly is very popular. Again, there's a lot you can do with it. Lots of neat little combos you can do. It's definitely not a typical Boros theme. I'm in an artifact theme. But like I said, there is a lot of ways you can go. Like, surprisingly, Boros does do artifact recursion pretty well. You do have the Goblin Welder, Goblin Engineer effects. White surprisingly does have a lot of pro artifact stuff that you can put in here. So the deck works really well. And again, you can go a lot of different directions with it. I think that's why it's so popular, and it will be for a very long time, just like with Adrix and Nev, but not number 1 for me. Number 1 for me this year was Brina the Demagogue. And interestingly enough, C21 I was not a big fan of. I'm still not a big fan of it. It might be the worst commander set ever made. The commanders were great. I had the top 3 commanders on my list are all from C21. Adrix, Nev, Oscar, and Brina. There was a lot of great commanders. I thought the 99 cards were really bad, mostly unplayable. I did my top 10 cards from that list to avoid, because I thought there were so many bad cards in that set that people go, oh, wow, this is so good, when in actuality it's not. And I would imagine a lot of those cards that people put in their deck probably realized they weren't that good and took them out. I'm going to cover this topic in a later video, just generally talking about Commander, the year overview in Commander, and how a lot of things have changed, and how Commander sets, and I don't want to get in this too much now, but how maybe Wizards of the Coast is grabbing you, because these are precons, they're grabbing you with the really interesting commander. That's the face of the box. And then the 99 cards aren't so good because you're going to buy the precon anyway. So there's no need for them to throw really good cards in the 99. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a conspiracy theorist here. I don't know, but I'll talk about this later on. However, needless to say, C21 did have a lot of great commanders this year. Like I said, my top 3 were all from C21. Brina the Demagogue is a fantastic commander. And while I was thinking about it, I'm like, Oscar could be number 1. I really like Brina, though. Just such a, again, very unique, interesting ability that you could go a lot of different ways with, that I've said about so many commanders on this list. 1 white, black, bird warlock, 1/3 with flying. Whenever player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card and you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. So I was a big fan of this when it first came out. You can go watch my spoiler video that I did. And my initial reaction was a very genuine reaction, because I hadn't seen it yet, and I thought it was a very interesting build around. And, while we're on the topic, that's how I'm going to do my spoiler videos going forward. I actually like the way I did those spoiler videos, where it's my first reaction and I'm just seeing the card for the first time and giving my first take on it. I think I'm probably going to do my spoilers that way going forward, because I don't think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of people do the prepared speech and here's the cards you should play with it. I think initial reactions can be really valid sometimes. And this one I was really blown away by, because again, it's doing a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different ways you can go with it, where I thought, oh man, you could even put spells in the deck to have your opponents gain life. Like, I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but you could do that, which I thought was very interesting, right? You could actually gain your opponent's life, or you could pay life, or you could use life manipulation effects to make sure you get the card draw. But of course, also your opponents are going to want to draw a card, right? The attacking player draws a card, so they're going to want to, you're encouraging them to attack opponents with more life, because then they get the draw card. But regardless of the situation, you get to put counters on your creature, so it's also a +1/+1 counter theme. It's doing a lot of different things. I like that it's cheap, so you can get it out right away and start going to town with it. That's another added bonus there. Really great commander. Really great year in general for commander, I think. I know there's a bunch of people that are going to be in the comments, where's this commander on the list? You know, their favorite commander from the year, if it wasn't on my list. You know, I can't fit them all. I think these are all fantastic commanders on this list. You know, that is without doubt. Are there some I could have took off and put others on? Maybe. There are some like Tovolar, Dire Overlord, which is already one of the most popular commanders in the entire format. Yeah, I could give that a mention. I think it's a little boring. I mean, you know, for me, again, you look at the commanders that I put on this list, and there's a lot, almost all of them, there's a lot of different directions you can go with it. There's really only one direction you can go with Tovolar. For me, I don't find it that exciting. It's a good commander, no question, but the ones that I like to mention are the ones that are more interesting and unique. But what do you guys think? What were your favorite commanders of this year? I thought it was a fantastic year for commander, no question about that. And not a fantastic year like they printed lots of busted cards for commander. I thought they printed lots of fair, interesting. I think they've gotten to the right place. And again, I'm going to make a video about this. You know, probably my last video of the year will be about this, about how I think that they went overboard for a couple of years and printed cards that were too good, and they've backed it off a little. And I think we've gotten to a good place where they're printing especially commanders that are very interesting, fun build-arounds that you can do lots of different stuff with, which is what I really like. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.